Worship is more than just a spiritual discipline. It's a way of life for the people of God. But for our purposes, we're going to approach it as a spiritual discipline. As a review, spiritual formation is what we call how we are shaped to become more like Christ, both inwardly and outwardly. This is not something that we do to ourselves. It is the work of the Spirit in us as we cooperate with the Spirit's leading and guiding. We invite the Spirit into our lives to do this work through things we call spiritual disciplines or means of grace. These are activities that open us up to the Spirit and allow God to commune with us and us with God. When we spend time with God like that, the process of spiritual formation takes place. We don't control it or make it happen. We just allow it to happen, set the right conditions for it to happen. So for the next several weeks, we will explore worship, and through worship, invite the Spirit to work in us, to grow us as Christians. Worship can be a complex and ambiguous topic. Sometimes it is hard to get a grasp on exactly what it is and when we're doing it. We're going to try to start really simply and build from there. And the simple that we are going to start with is just a definition. Worship is ascribing worth to something. Ascribe means we're recognizing that something has a certain quality, in this case, the worthiness of being worshiped. We're basically rating its value. We use the expression, worship the ground someone walks on. We're saying that person has such great value and worth that even the very ground they touch is worthy of our awe and respect. That makes them pretty important and valuable and worthy. When we worship God, in whatever form that takes, we are telling God and others that God has a certain amount of worthiness, that He has a certain amount of importance and value. How much, I suppose, depends on the degree of our worship, and that is why it's important to have a good understanding of what worship is. When we worship God, when we ascribe worth to God, we're recognizing that God has the inherent worth, the inherent value and importance, and we're just recognizing it. In that way, the most basic idea of worship is to just recognize and acknowledge that worth. This is separate from praise and thanksgiving, where we might be acknowledging God in relation to us. We will get there as we work through what worship is. But this week, we're going to start to focus by just on God's own inherent worthiness to be acknowledged by us. And the quality we're going to focus on is His holiness. Holiness is hard enough to explain when it pertains to us, but even harder when it pertains to God. So once again, we're going to keep it as simple as possible and begin by saying that God's holiness is that quality of God being separate from us and all of creation, that He is apart from us. That might seem like a strange quality to inspire worship, but it's actually the best starting point because it begins to put God in proper perspective. I think this will be easier to understand as we work through some Bible passages this week. So beginning today, pray that God will teach you to worship Himself as the people of God are called to do. It especially involves getting to know more about Him, and consequently, if our hearts are open, we will also come to know Him better personally.